How do you think your family dynamics have influenced your views on relationships and friendships? When you feel abandoned as a child, it makes cutting people off as an adult a lot easier. My parents had a very loving relationship, and we as kids got to see the fights and conflict resolution, and I think it's made my married life so much better than my mates. My wife and I can actually resolve our issues. My family taught me that loyalty is transactional. I've learned that trust and support are conditional, even with close relationships. I used to view kindness from family members with suspicion. My fiancée and I spent a year in Australia, and we were running short of money, and her aunt lent Harris $500, and I genuinely was shocked and wondered why she did that. I pleaded with her not to accept it. Then she came out of her way to pick us up from the airport, and once again, I asked her why on earth she would do that for us. Turns out her family all liked each other, which was also incredibly strange to me. All my aunt did was ban my sister and I from her house when we were children. My grandparents didn't really bother with us, but our cousins had their universities paid for and were given a gift of deposits for a house, while my sister and I were left out of that. So yeah, I treated kindness with suspicion. There was neglect on my parents' part too, which they've since forgotten or denied, of course. I've learned to treat kindness as normality and to also accept things from people who want to help. I am a romantic cause of trauma, so yes, I have to do everything for everyone or they'll hate me or try to hurt me. I can't say no or they'll hurt me. Everything said to me is something I have to act on or else. Nobody cares about my interests or opinions, and if I bring them up, I'll get harassed for the next 10 years. You can't rely on anyone because they'll just leave you stranded for 4 hours 20 miles from home because they were too busy watching TV. Yes, I'm no contact with my parents, and yes, I'm in therapy, which isn't going well since I have no healthy models to imitate or emotionally connect with. They destroyed them. I was born in the 70s to a nuclear family, more like nuclear holocaust. My father was unemotional, and my mother had some pretty severe mental illness. I learned how to be an asshole from my parents. It is a lesson I sadly have not completely unlearned. It teaches me about the things you never do and the red flags you don't want to find in your partner. My parents had a traditional marriage filled with toxic relationships and misogyny and manipulation and sadly physical abuse, so yeah, I definitely know all the bad things that I must avoid to have a successful marriage, and for that I'm thankful I have the best partner ever and am happily married. Thanks mom and dad. My husband's parents were amazing parents and 100 devoted to their kids' mental and physical health. My parents are emotionally immature, and it's crazy seeing the difference between our two childhoods. My husband has taught me to defend myself without guilt and encouraged therapy to learn that and how to say no. I have relationship OCD because of my parents' toxic and loveless relationship. My dad loved my mom, but she can't stand him. Somehow they're still together. I'm petrified of feeling stuck with the wrong partner. I'm constantly questioning if my partner is the one. I have a ton of anxiety and fear around romantic partners. I have complex PTSD from my childhood. It's been a rough ride. My frame of reference was a long runway of dating before getting married. My parents dated for 7 years, 5 of which they cohabited before they got married. My mom passed away shortly before their 37th wedding anniversary. I don't expect people to date a whole 7 years if they genuinely think they found the one, but I'm always shocked when people get engaged after a year or less of dating, or married after just a couple of years, especially if they didn't know each other before they started dating. But these things seem pretty normal for others. Boggles my mind. I wasn't even ready to move in with my partner until we'd dated for a year and some change. Grew up with a stepdad that was a violent alcoholic and a mother that was neglectful. In some ways, it's a positive. I despise beer and rarely drink. My kids have never seen me drunk. I'm not violent, and I'm not neglectful. Not perfect, but sure as heck I'm a whole lot better than what I grew up in. Trust, on the other hand, is not an easy thing to learn. My parents divorced when I was 4 or 5, and it definitely put a downer on how I view heterosexual relationships, marriage, and, unfortunately, men. Not directly because of my dad, but because of how my mom spoke about him in front of me as a child for years and years. I don't feel this way now though. I'm happily engaged and I don't hate men anymore. My parents have also always been happily married. I never saw them fight and never saw them yell at each other. The most I ever saw was annoyance or frustration, usually while driving before the era of GPS. Marriage just always seemed like something permanent and stable. Of course, I knew that it wasn't like that for all families, and many friends in school had divorced parents or talked about their parents' fights or odd behavior, like a dad giving the silent treatment to his entire family for months on end. My parents even worked together in the same office down the hall from one another. As a young adult, I heard people say they could never imagine being so close to their spouse all day. I was really surprised because for me it was normal that a married couple would be happy spending time together. I definitely think it sets up future generations for success in their relationships and marriages. Edit. I could also see the way they shared tasks and decision-making on a day-to-day basis. My father was a severe alcoholic who died a few years ago. Things I took away from his life and how he treated us. Never drink when upset. Said, I will never be with someone who is dependent on alcohol. If someone ever talks to me the way my dad talked to us, I'm out of there no matter how many years of marriage or any time in the relationship. I will not be having children. I don't even want the chance of fucking them up the way I am intentionally or not. I will seek therapy if I ever feel like I am too sad or out of control, and ultimately, don't be the kind of person whose death will be seen as a relief. My parents fucked any chance of me having a sense of what was healthy or normal in a relationship right up. Missed a lot of signs my marriage was starting to go down the tubes because my baseline was two people who did anything possible to not be in the same room for any length of time. Don't get me started. My family was so dysfunctional we should have gotten our own parking spot at the mall. It's a big part of why I've never gotten married or had children. Grew up an only child, in the middle of nowhere with neglectful parents. Letting other people into my life has been extremely difficult since I got so used to doing everything on my own.